Magnus and Cecilia Blanck. And if you can unmute. Magnus Andén is the chairman of the Swedish National Association JAG since 1992, and JAG works politically to promote independent living for its members, who are all persons with several large impairments, of which one is intellectual. And Magnus Andén will be assisted in this presentation by Cecilia Blanck, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope you hear us well.
Yes, very well.
Thank you. So my name is Cecilia, and your name is Magnus. And to start with, we have discussed this presentation thoroughly in Swedish, because that is the language we speak together and that you understand, Magnus. So you are well aware what we are planning to say. I am your sister, and I'm also your god man, which is a legal representative or like a personal ombudsman, something like that. It's yeah, so in that role, I am helping you to make this presentation in English. And you, Magnus, you communicate in a lot of different ways, but one of the most obvious, maybe for persons who don't know you so well, is that you point with your left finger when you mean yes, or when you agree to what is said. And now that I'm speaking English, it's a bit difficult for you, but you're approving. Du pekar, eller hur? Ja. De vet, jag har berättat för dem att du pekar. So, to start with, I will show you some share my screen if that is possible, I hope.
We see it.
Very good, thank you. So the name of this organization that you are the chairman of the board, Magnus, in is the National Association JAG. And the word JAG means I in Swedish. It stands, of course, for everyone's right to be the main character of one's life and not to be an object to be cared for. And this association, you, Magnus, you started it together with our mother in 1992. And the purpose was to fight for the right to personal assistance in Sweden. And this is the board of the association JAG. And you can see Magnus is the person number 2 from the right side. And these people are representatives of the organization, of course, because to have a full membership in JAG with the right to vote, nu berättar jag nu vem som kan bli medlem i JAG, and to be elected to the board, according to the statutes, one must have several large impairments, of which one is intellectual. And others, like me, like sisters and other relatives or friends, neighbors, whoever, can become supportive members. And then they don't have any power in the organization. They are just supportive. So this board runs this organization, and of course they need help from their legal representatives, like you get the help from me, Magnus. But the perspective is always the fully members. Now you're pointing, yes. Det är alltid de fullvärdiga medlemmarna. Ja. So, 3 of the most important keys to independent living The first one is personal assistance funding. And of course, it should be given wherever you are. Several of the speakers today have been into this definition of personal assistance. And we also say that you must have the power to choose who should be the assistant. Yes. And when assistance should be given, with what, and in what way. And the members of JAG also need a personal legal representative, and not anyone. It must be a person who knows you, who knows who you are, who can communicate with you, be able to interpret your will and wish, and also a person that you can trust. And a legal representative should be someone who helps you with the big decisions in life. Stora besluten i livet. With your money and the interpretation of your needs. And the third key is an accessible society, because to be able to live independently, the society as a whole need to be accessible. And that also means that you and your support must be welcomed and respected everywhere. So the main fight of JAG, we sometimes say, or quite often say, that it's against IQ discrimination. Because the members of JAG witness that they often are objects of IQ discrimination. They are treated worse than others because they cannot understand, or they cannot show that they understand, which sometimes is the same thing. And of course, this kind of discrimination, IQ discrimination, it's on top of all the other discrimination persons with disabilities experience. But the members of JAG, they witness that their need, for example, for personal assistance can be questioned because people say they do not understand anyway. And sometimes the self-determination that should be the goal for personal assistance instead becomes a condition. And this is really dangerous, that you have to show that you can use the assistance in the right way before you can be entitled to it. And for many of the members of JAG, they have met people who say that living in an institution should be good enough. And the ultimate IQ discrimination can be the right to life. Many witness that they have been denied life-saving care at the hospital because someone there thinks that their lives are not worth living. JAG is a part of a worldwide movement for human rights, the independent living movement, but it's against discrimination in general. Because it's the same thing, whoever is the target. So we are not in JAG, not just lobbying for better welfare or even better personal assistance. That's not the overall goal. It's against discrimination. But to be practical and to show things, solutions in the real world, we also, almost from the beginning, started their own user cooperative for providing personal assistance. Ideology in practice. And that is a way to achieve the overall goals, an independent life. It's a way to keep the power over the service and not being reduced to a customer or just a receiver of care that some other lecturers here have been talking about. And this is how we sometimes try to explain the difference between personal assistance in JAG's user cooperative on the right side and a traditional organization or company. Even if they are providing personal assistance, the organization reveals the perspective. So JAG is the employer for the personal assistance, but works as a support for the user to be in control. And since the users of JAG need help in supervising their personal assistance, they also choose a personal supervisor. And the assistants are never a group, as in the traditional structure. They are individually chosen, and they can actually have different tasks. So the conditions in Sweden for personal assistance since 1994, for persons with large impairments, there is a right to personal assistance. And there has been cutbacks in our system since then, both in the number of users, but also in the funding. And today it is approximately 28 euro per hour. And for most of the users in Sweden, the main part is paid by the state. And it's administrated and assessed. The needs are assessed by the social insurance system. It's a national system. And this is a good thing, we think, because before 1994, when you had personal assistance, Magnus, and the municipality paid for your assistance 24/7, then you had to compete with like football arenas or new roads in the municipality or other things. And it was you were looked at as an expensive citizen in the municipality, but the state funding makes it more. Eller hur? Ja, det är mycket bättre att staten betalar. Yeah. Makes you a neighbor among others. And today, 13,000 persons are entitled to personal assistance in Sweden. And in average, they are entitled to 132 hours per week. Är det okej? Ja, står det ut? And about half of them have an intellectual impairment. And quite a big part of the users are under the age of 20, actually 2,500 persons. And before the cutbacks in this system, about 16,000 persons used personal assistance in Sweden some years ago. And the funding, 28 euro per hour, it should cover all the costs for the assistance. Salary and taxes, of course, for the personal assistance. Alla pengarna räcka till. And the unsocial working hour supplement, which is quite a lot of money since the assistance, many uses the assistance in nights and weekends. It should cover social fees, of course, supervision, because the personal supervisor should also have some extra salary for their job. It covers the costs for time cards and accounting, recruitment costs, advertising, things like that. The administration for the assistance, insurances that are needed. It covers further education for the assistants, and they need that very much sometimes. Staff expenses, and also assistance expenses, which is when you travel, Magnus, and you need to bring your assistants with you. this money should also cover the assistance expenses for the traveling, tickets for the movies or whatever. So the JAG User Cooperative, it's one of the biggest assistance providers in Sweden. It was one of the first, and it is the biggest one that is non-profit, but it also one of the biggest overall. So we are competing with the for-profit providers in Sweden, which are the majority actually. The JAG User Cooperative has 430 members all over Sweden, both adults and children. And the members of JAG are entitled in average 135 hours per week, which is, if you compare, the week has 168 hours, so 135 is in average all your hours awakened, and maybe someone sleeping in where you are, sleeping in another room or something, being prepared to wake up during night. But you need assistance 24/7, Magnus. Yes, and you need double assistance sometimes as well. And that is possible according to the legislation in Sweden. The JAG User Cooperative is a big employer. We have about 3,900 personal assistants employed all over Sweden. And finally, I want to tell you a little about how we look at the different roles in the personal assistance, because it's very important that everyone keep their different roles in mind. It is actually a condition for the self-determination, that no one decides things that isn't in their role to decide. So to start with, of course, the member, everything starts with the member. Yes, and then the persons around helps the member with things, compensate the disability that you have, Magnus. And the first one is the legal representative that is appointed by society, not by JAG. It's a person with a commission from society. Actually, if it is a child that is a member, it is a parent mostly, if it's not a very special situation, but the parents represent the children. And if you are adult, you probably have a god man, which I am, and the god man is appointed by a court. And in very special cases, the legal representative can also be a guardian. But a good man can only act with consent. So goodmanship is a cooperation between the member and the legal representative. And we used to say that whoever this legal representative is, the goal should always be to give support to the member to come to one's own decisions. But there are no standard solutions. It has to be a very personalized support. You have to know each other well, and know what you need help with, and who you are, and what you have been, what you have wanted in the past, and to interpret what your communication means now.
We have 5 minutes before questions.
Pardon?
We have roughly 5 minutes before we start questions.
Okay, so I'll be quick with the other roles then. The personal supervisor, as I mentioned, is appointed by the member with help from the legal representative. And the supervisor is responsible for quality and continuity in the assistance. And this commission can be shared. And it's a fixed fee, that the salary is with a fixed fee. So you're like, have to be prepared to guarantee the quality. That means recruiting assistants together with you, Magnus, making up the schedule from your needs and your life, give instructions to the assistants when they need it, and deal with security matters, of course, in the assistants. And this is done in close cooperation with me and our mother and you, of course. And the responsibility for the continuity is that the assistance must always be given. So this supervisor has to be available. And if someone is going to be absent, it's important that she finds a substitute. And if she can't, she works herself if necessary. And she can always call JAG 24/7 to get help and support. And the personal assistants, finally, their role is to compensate the impairments of the member according to the instructions from the supervisor. And assist sometimes with initiatives and choices in daily life within the frames that are given by this supervisor. And if the assistants are assisting with communication, interpret, but never speak on behalf of the member or represent the member. That is someone else's task. And in our experience, many problems has their roots in persons not respecting the roles. Personal assistants who start supervising each other or making changes in the schedule or whatever, and then they violate the self-determination of the user. Or sometimes it can be a supervisor that starts to represent, to take over the legal representative's role. So I stop there for questions.
Yes, thank you very much. We have a few questions already. First question is, do you have a collective agreement for the personal assistance?
Quality agreements?
Collective agreement, collective.
Oh, yes, yes. We have. In Sweden, the labor market is the Swedish model. It relies on agreements between the unions and the employers' organizations. So yes, we have.
Yeah, thank you. The second question is what's the position of the of a salary of a personal assistant at JAG compared to the median salary in Sweden?
The salary for personal assistants are too low. We think that they should be higher, but the funding that is given per hour is the limit, of course. We have 28 euro per hour, and it should cover all the costs for the assistants. So no, it's lower than the median salary, unfortunately.
And is it like much lower? Is it like close to the minimum salary as in lots of countries, or is it like kind of in between?
Yes, there is a minimum salary, but it's very low, so we don't consider to employ people for that. We have individually agreements with all the assistants, and it depends, of course, on the assistant's background and earlier experience. We don't have a fixed model for salaries. It's always a negotiation. And it's also actually individual for the user, because within this 28 euro, you can prioritize what you need in your assistance. So for you, Magnus, it's very important to be able to recruit new assistants, and therefore to educate your assistant that you have. So that means that you can choose to put more money into salaries, and then you have less money over for traveling or have assistance expenses and things like that. So,
can I just...
Magnus, sorry. I forgot that. So Magnus has as you can see, sometimes he needs assistance with breathing as well.
Okay. Carol, I just want to say thank you to Magnus for this great presentation, because it was quite useful, and very brilliant. Yeah. Say hello to him. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yes, we have another question is, how can we avoid reproducing institutionalization when the human management of the assistance is also delegated to a legal representative? What guarantees that the legal representative will support rather than substitute the decision-making of a personal assistance user?
Ooh, that was, is it a question in the chat?
It's someone who asked it on the chat, and I'm just translating.
Yeah, and of course there are no guarantees for anything. You have to, in Magnus' situation, the important is to find a solution that is as good as possible for him to be self-determined. And I guess that sometimes he thinks that we don't interpret him right, of course. But the alternative is to not have an interpretation. So we have to make the best, find the best solution and the best representatives. Yeah, and then we made a conclusion that a person who doesn't know you, Magnus, has very small possibilities to interpret your will. So you will only be interpreted like what is best for persons in your situation generally. Jag tror Magnus behöver lite mer assistans. Han sitter lite tokigt, för benet åker ner här hela tiden. Ja, ni får sätta honom lite ordentligt. Yes, so there are no guarantees, but of course we also work with peer support, and the peer support in JAG also involves the legal representatives, so that they can also exchange experience together with the members. That the legal representatives are very important persons. So an engaged and present and long-term representative that involves in different activities, meet other persons, get inspired, likes the goals of the organization, then we can raise the awareness of the importance of this.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the chat if there's any more questions. Yeah, lots of people saying thank you. Otherwise, I think we can stop here for this morning. Thank you very much for your time.